Hey, it's Ash from Revolution Me. I'm a clinical neuropsychologist and I help people to harness the power of their brains to live the life they deserve. If you've never heard of a clinical neuropsychologist before, what we specialize is in brain function and how it impacts on our behavior. And I support people who want to create the life that they desire. And one of the things that's so important to living that life is to be able to handle our emotions, and that includes stress. Now, I'm recording this video. In fact, just a few hours ago, I dropped off my little one at daycare for the first time. So it's been a really big morning for our family, and what better day to talk about stress management than today? Because let's face it, we all go through stressful times. Life is full of ups and downs. Life is full of challenges. And the way to get through life is not to avoid those challenges, it's just to get better at handling them. So I'm going to be sharing with you in this quick video a few strategies for managing stress in a healthy and resourceful way. Unfortunately, we live in a world where many people do not handle stress in a healthy way. We may think we do, but if we actually look at the way that people are coping, we'll find that many people actually use distraction, ignoring or suppression as a way to cope with unpleasant emotions. So for example, we might distract ourselves from feeling stressed by eating or by consuming alcohol. We might try and suppress our emotions with food. We might try and ignore them and just focus on something else without actually managing the stress. And the thing about stress, and not just stress, but also emotions like anger and frustration, the thing about these emotions is that they activate our fight or flight response. It's a physiological reaction, and we need to actually deal with that reaction in order to be able to move on in a healthy way. And when we suppress or ignore or distract ourselves away from stress, we're actually not processing the emotions of that fight or flight response. So what can happen is the hormones associated with it don't get processed in our bodies. They linger, build up, and we find ourselves with any number of chronic diseases. And you don't have to look far in the literature to have a look at the whole host of chronic diseases, chronic illnesses that are associated with ongoing stress. So the way to deal with stress is to deal with the hormones and the physiological response, and then to have an appropriate way moving forward. So the first thing I always suggest to people is to get practiced. Become well versed in how you manage stress, or even how you observe stress. Handling stress is a little bit like driving. When you first learn to drive, you don't just go straight out into the heavy traffic during peak hour on a rainy day. You don't just throw yourself in the deep end. No, when you first learn to drive, you do it in a quiet street during the brightest part of the day where there's plenty of light, when you're feeling calm, when the conditions are ideal. And that's how you want to be practicing your stress management. You want to have strategies that you can go to that are so well rehearsed during those quiet periods, so that when things really hit the fan, those stress management techniques have become a habit that you can then turn to. Because the thing is, if we try and come up with ways of handling stress when we're already stressed, it's not really going to work out. Because when we're stressed, our brain goes to a default way of responding. It's up to us to reset that default, whatever it might be. So for some people, when they get stressed, the first thing they do is they jump on Facebook and they distract themselves. For some people, they hit the vending machine. Other people might go outside and light up a cigarette. We all have a default way of responding. Maybe we have 2 or 3 default ways of responding. The key is to reset our default and have a new way of handling it, and we've got to practice it. And there are so many ways that you can choose to handle stress in a positive way. And there's no perfect way to handle stress. We just need to make sure that we're handling it in a way that's sustainable, meaning if we were to do it every single time, it wouldn't cause harm to our health or our mental well-being. We want it to be sustainable. We want it to be replicable. So we want it to be some sort of strategy that we can do anytime, anywhere. So if our method of coping is to get up and go for a walk, if that's our only way of coping, to go outside for a walk, then how do we handle stress when we're stuck in the middle of a meeting, or when we're in the middle of an exam, or we're in a circumstance where we can't just get up and walk out. So it's ideal to have maybe a couple of stress management techniques, or to have a technique that is replicable that we can use in any situation. So sustainable, replicable, and we want it to be healthy, because quite frankly, if you're eating junk food every single time you're stressed, you're going to find your health deteriorating pretty quickly. So I have faith that you know some appropriate ways that you benefit, ways in which you benefit in terms of your stress management. So here are some ideas. So going for a walk, doing something creative like writing, and handwriting furiously in a journal can be a really great way of diffusing some of those stress hormones. Anything that involves movement. So whether it's blowing up a balloon, that one's a really good one for kids, by the way, because they can blow up a balloon, you tie it off, and then they can just whack the balloon, hit it around, bash it around, and they're not going to cause any harm to anything. Tearing up bits of paper into confetti, that's another really good one for kids. Anything that involves movement is great. Anything that involves breathing is great. So if you're into meditation, if you're into doing the really deep breathing like they teach you in yoga, doing yoga poses is another really great way of managing stress. Talking to a friend, having a big drink of water, because when you drink water fast, it forces you to regulate your breathing, which is a great way of reducing your stress as well. So there's a whole number of ways to reduce stress. The problem is that most people don't go to those ways because we haven't programmed them into our mind. So the key is repetition. Do it even during neutral times. Practice every time you feel even the slightest bit of stress, you go to your new default. Create a new habit. And only that way, when you create a new habit and you entrench it in your brain, then you'll know that when it really hits the fan, and when you're really in that crisis moment, when you're really, really feeling stressed, you'll be able to turn to that new habit, and it will happen automatically because you've practiced it so much. So I'm going to leave this video here. I trust you found that useful. I've got some links below where you can find me. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Periscope, I'm on Facebook and Instagram as well. So feel free to catch me on there. And thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you next time.